Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm your host, and if you're like me, you love finding out how things actually work behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm your resident wildlife expert, and I am super excited about this one.
Awesome. So, setting the scene here, you close your front door, right? You turn the deadbolt, and you just sort of assume that nature is safely locked outside.
Right, which is a total illusion.
Exactly. I mean, it is incredibly easy to look at a brand new master plan subdivision with the pristine sidewalks and manicured lawns and just think we've successfully conquered the wild. But nature does not respect property lines.
It doesn't at all. It's a very comforting thought, this rigid line between human habitat and the natural world.
Yeah.
But the reality is just much more fluid.
And nowhere is that collision of environments more obvious than in a place like Magnolia, Texas.
Oh, for sure.
You've got this beautiful, really geography-defining landscape in southwestern Montgomery County. There are these dense pine forests, rolling pasture lands, and heavily wooded creek bottoms, especially around the Mill Creek system.
Yeah, that whole area is just rich with wildlife.
Right. But over the last decade or so, you've seen older rural horse farms suddenly sitting right next to dense, brand new residential construction.
Which is a huge shock to the ecosystem. I mean, you are essentially dropping thousands of human homes straight into the middle of a thriving wildlife corridor.
Yeah.
And the animals, they don't just pack up and leave when the bulldozers roll in. They adapt.
They figure it out.
Exactly. Suddenly, a climate-controlled attic with soft, warm insulation looks like prime real estate to them.
Which brings us to our mission today. How do we actually manage that conflict? We're taking a really close look at how a very specific veteran-owned business in that area, the Critter Team, operates.
Right. Founded by Mike Garrett.
Yep, Mike Garrett, a retired U.S. military veteran. He founded it back in June 2015, and he runs it alongside Victoria Garrett, who since early 2016 has been managing this massive logistical puzzle of coordinating all these schedules across the county.
Which is no small feat, honestly.
No, not at all. But the defining feature of their operation, and this is really crucial for our deep dive, is that they are an exterminator that handles nuisance wildlife, not insects.
That distinction is everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. If you call a traditional pest control service to spray for, like ants or roaches, the insects die, they dry up, and they largely disappear.
Right, you just sweep them up.
Yeah. But dealing with mammals requires a completely different operational mindset. It's almost like structural engineering meets biology.
Okay, let me jump in right off the bat, actually, because if I have a critter in my walls, my absolute first instinct is just to call a standard, cheap bug exterminator.
Sure, most people do.
Right, because I just assume they could toss some poison back there and the problem goes away. So why does a specialized company like this explicitly avoid using poison? Like they have a strict rule against it.
Well, think about the biological mechanism of what happens when a mammal, say a rat or a squirrel, ingests poison. It is not a quick or clean process at all.
It's not.
No. The animal starts to feel incredibly sick, and its natural survival instinct is to retreat to the deepest, darkest, most inaccessible void it can find to hide.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Usually that is deep inside your wall cavity or under your floorboards or buried beneath 3 feet of attic insulation.
So it just dies in there?
Yes, it dies right there on the wall. And within days, that decomposing carcass will literally make a home uninhabitable. The odor is horrific. It's this sweet, suffocating smell.
That sounds horrible.
It's awful. But it's not just the smell. As the animal breaks down, you get a secondary infestation of flies and maggots.
Oh, gross.
Right, and biohazardous fluids begin leaking directly into your drywall. At that point, you aren't just dealing with an animal anymore. You are dealing with an extraction.
Meaning they have to tear the wall open.
Exactly. A technician has to come out, use a thermal camera or just their nose to pinpoint the body, cut a physical hole in your drywall, extract the carcass, sanitize the void, and then repair the wall.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that sounds like an absolute nightmare.
It really is.
Yeah.
Which is why their entire core philosophy is rooted in humane live extraction. They operate completely poison-free, and they do everything in-house.
Yeah.
They never use subcontractors.
Oh, they control the whole process.
Yep. They safely remove the animal, seal the entry points permanently, clean up the damage, and back it all with a written warranty.
Okay, so let's look at how this plays out physically, right? Starting at the top of the house, we mentioned Magnolia's defining physical feature is that dense pine and hardwood canopy.
Which is beautiful, but yeah, Problematic.
Right, because those trees basically act as, it's like an unregulated wildlife highway overpass leading straight to your fascia boards.
That's a great way to put it. The tree canopy provides direct jumping access to the roofline. And the most common opportunist using that highway is the squirrel.
Of course.
You see this constantly on those wooded rural acreage properties. But even in the new master plan subdivisions, builders push the home so close to the tree line that squirrels have incredibly easy access.
And their primary tool is their teeth, right?
Oh, absolutely. Squirrels have to gnaw constantly just to keep their teeth filed down. So they find a soft connection on the exterior, maybe a gap where the soffit meets the shingles, or a builder-grade gable vent with, cheap screening.
And they just chew their way in.
They chew right through it. And once inside, the damage is staggering. They shred your fiberglass insulation to build nests, but more dangerously, they love to chew the casing off electrical wiring.
Which is a huge fire risk.
A massive fire risk.
Yeah.
If you hear frantic scratching or running sounds in your attic, usually right around dawn, and you notice small scattered pellets, you likely have squirrels.
But wait, if I walk outside and find the hole they chewed, why can't I just run to the hardware store, grab some expanding foam, patch it up, and be done with it?
Because if you seal a hole without actually verifying the animal is gone, you trigger a complete panic response.
Oh, because it's trapped.
Exactly. A trapped squirrel realizes it can't get out to find food or water. It will literally tear through structural wooden supports, shred your drywall, and cause thousands of dollars in secondary damage just trying to escape.
Man, they just tear the house apart from the inside.
Yeah, or worse, it dies up there, and you are right back to that dead animal in the wall scenario.
So you have to get them out first. I know the critter team fabricates 23-gauge aluminum on-site, painting it to match the house, to proof those compromised areas once they are totally empty.
Right. A permanent fix.
But squirrels aren't the only things using the roofline. The creek corridors in Magnolia also support massive bat populations.
Oh, bats. Bats are an incredibly complex issue. They don't even need a chewed hole, really.
They just squeeze in?
Yeah, older homes often have aging fascia boards. That's the long board right under the roof edge. As that wood warps over time, it leaves tiny gaps between the board and the brick. Bats squeeze right up behind the trim.
And in newer builds.
In newer builds, they usually exploit unsealed builder-grade vents.
And we aren't talking about one or two bats here.
No. A maternal colony can number in the hundreds.
Hundreds in one attic.
Easily. And if they go unnoticed, the guano they're droppings accumulates astonishingly fast. You'll start noticing dark piles on your driveway, or it's stuck to the windows just below the roof line.
Which is not just a mess, it's a profound health hazard.
A major health hazard.
Yes.
Bad guano harbors histoplasma fungal spores.
Right.
So imagine, going up into your hot, dry attic to grab holiday decorations. You bump a roof beam, disturb a pile of dried guano, and suddenly those spores are airborne.
And you breathe it right in.
Yeah, and you are risking a severe respiratory infection. Plus, as the CDC notes, they're carriers of rabies. You really, really do not want to be up in an enclosed attic trying to handle this yourself.
Well, and you legally can't handle it yourself, right?
Right, exactly. Bats are vital to the local ecosystem. They consume massive amounts of mosquitoes and agricultural pests. You cannot legally exterminate them.
So what's the solution?
Exclusion is the only permitted method. Mike Garrett actually holds an NWCOA bat standard certification.
Wow.
Yeah, he personally completes 60 to 80 bat jobs, and the company as a whole does 30 to 40 jobs per year just in Greater Houston.
Okay, so for those of us unfamiliar with the industry, how exactly does an exclusion work? Like, how do you get 300 bats out of an attic without trapping them?
It's actually a brilliant use of the animal's own biology against it. They install a one-way device, usually a slick, specialized plastic tube or netting funnel, directly over the primary entry point.
Okay.
So at dusk, the bats drop out of the tube to go hunt insects. But when they return before sunrise, the slick angle of the device prevents them from gripping the material to climb back in.
Well, that's clever, so they just naturally evict themselves over a few days.
Exactly. The technicians monitor it, and once the colony is entirely gone, they remove the valves and permanently seal the space.
It's super elegant, but all this activity up in the roofline actually creates a sort of domino effect.
Oh.
Well, a squirrel chews a hole, a bat colony moves in, and suddenly the physical structure of the home is compromised. That opens the door for the larger mid-level opportunists.
Yes. Raccoons are the perfect example of this.
Right.
They're incredibly strong, highly intelligent, and they're really drawn to the wooded creeks and those rural retention lakes scattered around Magnolia.
And when it gets cold,
Right. A female raccoon looking for a late winter den will easily tear open an already weakened ridge vent, or she'll just rip those heavy metal 30 by 30 round mushroom vents completely off the roof.
And if she gives birth to a litter of kits up in your attic, the contamination crisis just scales up exponentially.
Oh, it's a rapidly worsening issue. And you'll know they're there. Raccoons can climb downspouts and gutters even if you've meticulously trimmed your trees back.
Really? Without trees?
Yep. You'll see muddy footprints on your gutters, and you'll find these chihuahua-sized droppings up there.
Which carry their own unique, pretty terrifying biological risk.
Yeah, raccoon feces frequently carry Belisascaris roundworm eggs.
Yeah.
And these eggs are incredibly resilient. They can survive in attic insulation for years. If ingested or inhaled, it's a severe parasitic disease. Furthermore, raccoons will completely crush your insulation under their weight, and they routinely tear open flexible ductwork.
Just to get the AC.
Yeah, to enjoy the warm or cool air flowing through. It's a huge mess.
So how does the critter team handle them?
They use humane live traps, and they check them daily. And they make a specific point to carefully handle nursing females so they can keep the mother and her young together during relocation.
That's good. It's humane, but it gets the threat out of the house. Now, on the completely opposite end of the size spectrum at this mid-level, you have roof rats.
Right, roof rats thrive in the dense vegetation of Montgomery County, and their entry mechanics are just terrifying.
Why is that?
Because a roof rat only needs a gap the size of a dime to slip inside your home.
A dime. That's insane. Think about how many dime-sized gaps exist on the exterior of a standard house.
They are everywhere. You have the tiny gaps where the AC line penetrations go through the brick. You have weep vents, which are those intentional gaps left in brickwork so moisture can escape.
Oh, right. They squeeze right through those.
Exactly. And unlike bats, which use one concentrated area for droppings, rats constantly scatter dark pellets everywhere along every travel path they take.
And this brings us back to the poison issue from the start of the deep dive, because when people think rats, they immediately think rat poison. But the critter team strictly uses snap traps.
Only snap traps. No poison.
But wait, a snap trap? That sounds kind of old school and brutal compared to just leaving a modern bait block out. Why is no poison such a strict rule for rats?
Aside from that horrific dead animal smell we talked about earlier, poison creates mechanical disasters with rats.
Mechanical disaster.
Yeah. When a rat consumes anticoagulant poison, it induces massive internal bleeding, which makes the rat incredibly thirsty.
So it starts frantically looking for water.
Right. And the closest water source is usually the plumbing running through your home's walls. The poisoned rat will literally chew right through your PVC water pipes trying to get a drink.
Oh my God. So now you don't just have a dead rat, you have a flooded kitchen.
Exactly, or a completely destroyed ceiling. Snap traps offer immediate humane dispatch. They allow the technician to instantly and cleanly remove the carcass.
That makes total sense.
And once the rat population is trapped out, they move to exclusion-fitting copper or stainless steel mesh into those weed fence and putting galvanized covers over gaps.
Right. And while the rats are sneaking in through the weep holes, birds are setting up shop in the exhaust vents.
Oh, the birds. European starlings, house sparrows, pigeons.
It's a huge issue for commercial signage along the local farm-to-market roads, but residentially they are packing nests into dryer vents and bathroom exhausts.
Which creates an immediate severe fire hazard.
I can imagine.
Yeah, a dryer vent gets packed with dry twigs, grass, and feathers. You turn on your dryer, pushing intense heat through that blocked pipe, and you have a recipe for a catastrophic house fire.
Not to mention the bird waste is highly acidic.
Very acidic. It causes severe corrosion to metal facades and paint.
So I'd imagine a frustrated homeowner might just climb a ladder and rip the nest out of the vent. Problem solved, right?
You cannot do that.
Why not?
The legal complexities here are intense. Because of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, many of these birds are federally protected.
Oh, really?
Yes. Disturbing an active nest, eggs, or harming a protected species without proper authorization is literally a federal crime.
Wow, okay. Which explains why professional credentials matter so much. You need a company with an official bird barrier certification.
Exactly. And a Texas nuisance wildlife permit, plus their $1 million, $2 million liability insurance.
Right. They navigate the federal laws, identify the species safely, and then install certified spiking, netting, and commercial-grade vent covers.
And then comes the cleanup. Extracting the waste, sanitizing the ductwork, fixing the airflow. It's intricate work.
Definitely. Okay, so we've moved from the canopy roofline down through the mid-level walls and vents, and that brings us down to the ground game, the foundation.
The ground game is fascinating.
It is, because this is where you really see the ecosystem effect in action. The presence of one nuisance animal at the ground level directly attracts another. You end up with this functioning micro-ecosystem right in your backyard.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the snakes.
Yeah, Magnolia sits in prime snake habitat. You've got those creek bottoms and pasture lands that house copperheads and western cottonmouths.
Which are venomous.
Highly venomous. Plus, harmless but really intimidating rat snakes and coach whips.
But the most fascinating dynamic here is that snakes are basically nature's symptom checkers, right? The snake is just the smoke. The rodents are the actual fire.
That is exactly it. Snakes generally only care about three things:
Yeah.
hibernating, mating, and eating. So if it's not mating season and the temperature isn't forcing them into hibernation, a snake inside your house usually means you have an existing rodent problem.
They're just following the food.
Yes, they track the scent trails of rats and mice right through those weak ground-level vents or into garage doors or AC penetrations.
So if you panic, call someone to remove the snake, but ignore the rats in the walls, you are basically just setting a fresh dinner table for the next snake.
Precisely. True wildlife management means solving the root cause. You need safe capture and relocation of the venomous snake by highly trained professionals who are available 24/7. But you also have to seal the ground-level gaps and do the rodent exclusion to remove the food source.
Right, otherwise it's just a revolving door.
Uh,
Okay, so snakes hunt rodents, but what about armadillos?
Armadillos are a completely different headache.
Yeah, because Magnolia is known for this beautiful sandy loam soil, and when you combine that with heavily irrigated lawns, it attracts armadillos digging these 3 to 4 inch cone-shaped holes looking for grubs. But here's my pushback. An armadillo digging for grubs just sounds like a landscaping annoyance. It ruins the grass. Why would I need a licensed wildlife technician for my lawn?
Because the damage is rarely just cosmetic. Armadillos don't just dig shallow divots, they excavate incredibly deep burrows for shelter.
Right.
And they love to dig those burrows right up against structural elements. They will burrow under your driveway, beneath AC pads, and, most dangerously, right alongside your home's foundation footers.
Wait, they can actually compromise a house's foundation?
Absolutely they can.
Mm-hmm.
A concrete foundation footer relies on the compacted soil beneath it for support. If an armadillo removes a massive amount of that soil, the concrete is left suspended in the air.
Oh, wow.
And over time, especially with the shifting Texas clay and loam soils, that unsupported concrete settles and cracks. You are looking at severe, expensive structural repairs.
All because of a little armadillo.
All because of an armadillo.
That completely changes the perspective. It's a matter of property preservation. But I've heard store-bought traps rarely work against them.
They rarely work, because armadillos don't respond to bait the way a raccoon does. You can't just put fruit in a cage. They have terrible eyesight, so they navigate by smell and by wandering along physical barriers.
So how do you catch them?
Trapping an armadillo requires manipulating their walking paths. Technicians set up physical funnels, often using directional wooden wings, that literally bump the armadillo into the trap. The placement and angle matter way more than the trap itself.
So you guide them naturally, check it daily, and relocate them safely.
Exactly. And then you have to deal with the massive burrow left behind. Because if you don't fill it, a skunk moves in, and then you need their skunk den exclusion and odor treatment services. Or an opossum gets in your crawl space.
It's just endless. It paints a very clear picture of this relentless natural world constantly pressing against our built environment.
It really does.
So, to sort of summarize this incredibly detailed landscape, managing wildlife in Montgomery County isn't just about throwing a cage in the yard. It is a highly specialized, holistic process. A company like the Critter Team isn't just trapping animals. They are decontaminating attics, replacing insulation, repairing damage, and offering a written warranty.
They treat the home as an interconnected system. They understand that a chewed gap at the roofline and a burrow at the foundation are all part of the same larger issue.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to ponder long after we finish today. We spend so much time decorating the inside of our homes, right? Painting the walls, arranging furniture.
Making it perfect.
Exactly, making our sanctuaries. But consider the invisible, thriving ecosystem operating just inches away, right behind your drywall. The next time you wake up and hear a subtle scratch in the early morning hours, or notice a tiny gap in your home's brickwork, ask yourself who exactly is looking at your house as their next master plan development.